they included a document in their report back to the public auditor that, Mr. Baza signed some kind of document claiming that he received no financial benefit with regards to these settlements. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Mr. Louis Baza accepted financial compensation the moment he took that job at the port to serve in this capacity and then be directly involved in the settlements of these cases. I mean, that just really raises some real, you talk about ethics, certainly raises some real ethical questions with regards to his actions and the actions certainly of Rory Respicio with regards to not protecting the public interest and public funds.
There was a release that came out of the port. It's always, when these audits, because this is not the first audit that the auditor has done on these Port 7 reinstatements, right? I think there was another one, and the port wrote like a 40-page clapback. This response was much shorter, and it says, "Port pleased with audit results." And they basically go on to say that basically BJ Cruz in his conclusion of the audit said that, there were a bunch of problems, but, they're just pleased with it. So I guess I just want to say, isn't there a committee in the legislature that oversees the Port Authority of Guam? And I don't know if I was an oversight chair that oversaw the port and I saw another audit about this, who oversees the port, basically?
Well, Senator Talina Nelson has oversight of the Port Authority. And Chris, it's really ironic as well that you don't have more members of the Guam legislature coming out with regards to, particularly on the majority Democratic side, that have these oversight responsibilities. I mean, other issues were raised earlier last year with regards to hiring practices. And at the end of the hearing, it's pretty much like, hey, you guys are doing a good job at the port. And yet the evidence shows contrary to that. I mean, we have an expectation that public officials act responsibly, that public officials that are entrusted with overseeing government operations are ensuring that they are protecting the public interest first and foremost with regards to executing their duties. And with regards to the audit findings where you see, point after point that is not the case, that they, again, overpaid an individual, not by, we didn't calculate quite right, a few dollars here or there. I mean, by perhaps another $100,000, as in the audit case that came out last year, again, another overpayment of $100,000+, giving increments. I mean, they raised the issue with the board that Rory seemed to be very adamant in coming after me publicly about, with regards to retro payments, and yet they were giving retro payments at the high end for these individuals at the highest percent possible. And then even the question came out that, to find out that back in 2011 or 2012, certainly prior to my time there at the port, that they were given compensation for evaluations that were never signed by the previous GMs. I mean, it appears very clearly that they could not have done more to maximize the amount of money they could pay these individuals. And keep in mind, they keep saying, according to the civil service decision. Really, I think that civil service process is very tainted with the fact that Mr. Louis Baza, ends up jumping out of his seat up there as chairman to take this position. And like I said, be very directly involved in the settlement agreements, and without ensuring what benefit was these settlement agreements to the ratepayers and the people of Guam when you see a flagrant abuse and misuse of public resources that make you question that. Keep in mind, early on in the game, if you recall last year, when the issue of these settlements came up, the port wanted to keep these settlements private. These were private settlements until the Attorney General came out publicly and said, no. This information is public information. And now that these audits are coming out, I think the public is hearing very clearly what has gone on down there with regards to corruption at the Port Authority of Guam, with misusing this process. Keep in mind also, Rory Respicio, who allowed these individuals before these so-called settlement agreements even happened to come back into the port on a regular basis. There are many employees there, the employees that testified against these individuals with regards to their misdeeds and wrongdoing at the port. What example does that set when the administration was coming in and parading these people around in their presence? I mean, that would be intimidating to individuals that came forth and provided information. And then to see this happening even before these so-called settlement agreements happen. So it makes you wonder if that's the case, and reports that he was meeting with some of these individuals in his office, even when these cases were still in the process. And then again, more importantly, the example that this sends out to the community, instead of sending out the message that employees in the government, public officials that misuse their position should be held responsible for their actions. And that's not the message that has been sent here. The message has been sent, oh, we're going to pay these people back. We're going to bring them back. And this is the example. Not only that, we're going to make them profit from it. We're going to pay them even more money than they should have had to begin in the first place. And they're doing that with public resource. And that's not the example we set. We wanted to ensure that people that misuse their position, that did illegal activities, were held responsible for it. And we put that process in place. That was a policy direction that was put in place during our tenure there. And then they keep saying, oh, as recent as you know, a few weeks ago, I mean, right before Christmas, there was another board decision made to settle another case there involving a supervised report police officer. Again, I'm sure perhaps at some time you get to review that. Interesting, that individual's actions. And they're again wanting to move to settle rather than pursuing the process through the Civil Service Commission and through the court system. You know, many of the decisions made by Louis Boza, including the standard under which they were evaluating those cases, were determined inaccurate by the court system. Many of those decisions were overturned by the courts when we unfortunately had to go pursue it through the legal route because of those irresponsible decisions and inaccurate decisions that were made by the Civil Service Commission. But instead of saying, no, we're going to ensure people are held responsible, as this administration, Rory Respicio and his regime down there seem to be embracing individuals that are not doing things the right and proper way. And that to me is not the right message to send out. They're claiming, oh, well, we don't want to spend any more money pursuing these cases, but they're spending millions of dollars paying out millions of dollars of public money to pay these individuals. So I really have to question really what's going on down there. But this to me, I mean, you look at it, you see it, and now certainly reviewing these audit reports by the public auditor, people at Guam really need to be looking at what's going on down there and how their money is being misused. These political payoffs that have been happening by this administration and embracing these actions rather than setting a positive example for our employees that work very hard every day. Because there's a lot of good people down there at the port that work hard every day to carry the load because they do have to move things every day down there. And then to see these kind of examples that are being upheld and the red carpet being rolled out and the abuse of public resource that's happening under the current leadership and management of Rory Respicio at the Port Authority of Guam.
Senator, so the remedies, right? Well, the two that I see that are, clear are with the Attorney General, right, where the public auditor has come out. There's another audit he did on the quarantine. Now the Attorney General seeking some opinion from the court to see if he should even bother moving on that audit's findings. And I know he has reportedly said in other media that he's going to be looking at this back pay and the issues brought up in the audit. But what about legislatively, right? So I know that we had the oversight hearing on the port hiring last year, but I was under the impression that hearing was going to be continued. I don't know if that ever happened, but do you think that this audit warrants some type of like legislative hearing, whether a oversight or a roundtable informational hearing or any type of setting where you guys
I have to tell you, Chris, I have to chuckle at this a bit because if the chairs were turned around and this was the Democratic majority and certainly we were Republicans, if we were in the administration right now and we entered into these settlement agreements like this without the proper procedures, including going to the board and getting a resolution to approve these settlement agreements, which again, according to the audit report, states that did not happen with regards to these settlements. So, my understanding is then these settlements had to have occurred simply at the level of the GM and the deputy GM and these employees. It didn't go through the board. It didn't see the light of public day with regards to this before this issue was even, approved. If this had been turned around, if Tom Atta and BJ Cruz were still in the Guam legislature, I'll tell you, they'd be raising a lot of noise. I mean, they even did it when we were there at the Port Authority with regards to the YTK issue. Again, another issue that Rory Respicio had his fingers all over without a board approval to try to set up a meeting and do settle a case that had already been argued before the Supreme Court of Guam. And the people of Guam were simply waiting for the formal decision of the Supreme Court with regards to YTK to want to settle that too. Again, without concurrence of the board or knowledge of the board. Fortunately, the Supreme Court ruled in concurrence with our position was that that was not a legal contract. And we're talking big money. They were claiming that the people of Guam and the Port of Guam owed them $17 million. And all of a sudden, Roy Respicio becomes board GM and, he's ready to go privately settle this without, again, meeting the public review and public light of day. This current Democratic leadership in the legislature with regards to the oversight responsibilities have been very quiet. Prior to this, the last term, Clint Rigel, we talked to him at the very beginning of his term to bring these concerns to light. He's like, those things were settled. He did nothing, said nothing. And now, Senator Talina Nelson, she held the hearing, but at the end of the day, she congratulated them rather than really acknowledging or looking into the misuse of, including hiring. I don't know how they're able to hire limited term people at the port. I don't know what legal authority they have to do that. And that's been happening. But you don't see or hear anything about that. I guess when it's on their side of the aisle, it's okay. It's quiet. We got nothing to say about it. But certainly the tables have been turned. Like I said, I'm sure if BJ Cruz were still legislating, even Tom Atta, who, I've had my moments of disagreement with him, but he would have raised that. Yeah. Even though we never took action to do anything other than, properly pursue things through the court system. But this administration, they've simply, they've just wanted to wash away this whole process and make it disappear and pay off these political cronies of theirs that were actively involved in their campaign. And that's really not the right way to go about these issues. That's not what our responsibility is in our public capacities in overseeing public resources and public money. And this to me is just a flagrant misuse of that. And I'm waiting. I haven't heard. Those are questions you're going to have to ask the oversight chair as to, has she reviewed this and is she going to do anything about it? Because it's quiet. It's been quiet for what now? We're already in the second year of our term. But I don't hear a lot of noise. I don't hear a lot of questions coming from their side with regards to these issues.
Something that we made a lot of noise about was this above step hiring. And I don't know if you saw the public auditor's 2022 calendar work year plan. He's going to do an audit on government-wide above step hiring. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm glad that he's doing it. In special situations and circumstances where there's a real need, understandable for someone who has the credentials, and you need to hire. We talked about that not too long ago with regards to the hospital. If it's for medical, medical expertise and things like that, I think we can totally understand that. But Chris, keep in mind, at the very beginning of this administration, let's turn the clock back, 3 years ago. One of the first things this administration did before their directors even sat in their chair enough to keep their chair warm, they raised salaries at the very beginning of the term before these individuals even demonstrated any degree of capability and competency. The argument was, we need to get qualified people. So the first thing they did was raise salaries. So that to me has been a continuing trend to keep raising and making sure, obviously we're seeing them, as in the case of the public health recently. They're moving to put their people and not only put their people, but pay them at the high end. What do you say about something like that? Where's the real what does this have to do with the priorities of public service and keeping the cost of government down and being responsible? We're talking at the other end, oh my gosh, we got a tsunami or a super typhoon of a pandemic coming, round 3, ring the bell. Not knowing, where we're going to be in 5 or 6 months or a year as this federal money starts drying up. Go through Tumon. I was there a few days ago just to get a sense of what was going on. My goodness, it's still a ghost town. Major component of our private sector industry has been at a standstill for 2 years. And knowing full well that once that the money starts drying up from the federal, at some point, the party's going to end. We cannot survive and maintain this government and government operations and our obligations here to our people on the revenue that we simply would generate without this infusion of federal money. And that's a very scary thing. But while all that's going on, we're just busy, we're taking off the table. We're doing pay raises. We're doing these above step hiring left and right. What does that have to do with public service? Where are we showing some sense of responsibility in making these decisions and being more conservative in how we're approaching our operations in government so that we can get through what is coming, what are more challenging times coming ahead so that we can continue to provide our public responsibilities and public service. So, that's a very good thing. I'm very, very happy that the public auditor has put this on his agenda to look into, because it really, when you hear these type of stories come down, I mean, I can't imagine. I've never been a classified employee in the government of Guam, but I can't imagine being a long-term classified employee coming in every day and chugging along, and then somebody who has no expertise at all comes in, and some cases maybe above me, and all of a sudden getting paid far more, and they haven't even carried the heavy buckets of water to get us to where we need to go. That would be demoralizing,
Yeah.
and disappointing.
Yeah. Senator, so we just got a release from the Guam Election Commission. Candidate packets for the 2022 elections available starting tomorrow. Are you running again?
Gosh, another 2 years of this. How won't that be an adventure? Wow. When I ran again, Chris, and I never planned. I mean, I've been upfront about this. I didn't run just to run to be in the legislature again. I've been very fortunate and blessed. I mean, the people at Guam gave me 6 consecutive terms and another lifetime ago to serve them. And I ran because of this type of nonsense and corruption that I see going on in our government. And highly disappointed that the individuals that had an opportunity to come in and do better, take things to the next level, have not done that. Instead, they've been trying to misuse and abuse and take as much off the table as they possibly can, rather than ensuring their mission of public service. And that to me is very disappointing. That's one of the main reasons I ran this last term, and certainly for all indications and from the people that have supported me in coming back, more than likely, I don't see a change. As a matter of fact, I see these problems increasing rather than decreasing. And I'm going to continue to do as I've done in this past term. I only have one bill that passed, but a bill that has had tremendous impact, at least with regards to public accountability. And that's our Public Law 3634 that actually now requires these boards and commissions and government meetings to publicize in advance what's on their agenda, including the things going on at the Port Authority and other boards and commissions. Because, Chris, I have to ask you, I mean, have you had any success in getting in contact with any of